Welcome back to the channel. It starts with a moment almost everyone has experienced, the faint metallic clink of a coin hitting the bottom of your pocket, purse, or car cup holder, a sound so ordinary that most people ignore it completely. But what if that tiny sound was actually the echo of history and unimaginable wealth? What if one of the most overlooked coins in American history, the humble 1976 dime, was quietly hiding in everyday pocket change right now, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it? Because believe it or not, collectors and experts have revealed that certain rare versions of the 1976 United States dime have shocked the numismatic world, with jaw-dropping valuations reaching as high as $32 million. Yes, $32 million for a coin most people would spend without a second thought on a vending machine snack. And the wildest part of this story is that many of these coins were never meant to become rare treasures at all. They were simply struck during a historic moment in America's timeline when the nation was celebrating its bicentennial, a time when millions of coins flooded into circulation as part of everyday life. Yet, hidden among those countless pieces of metal were tiny anomalies, subtle minting errors, experimental strikes, and incredibly rare conditions that would later transform a 10-cent coin into one of the most sought-after mysteries in the entire world of coin collecting. And today the race is on, because collectors believe some of these rare 1976 dimes may still be sitting unnoticed inside jars of change, forgotten dresser drawers, dusty piggy banks, or old family coin albums inherited from relatives who never realized what they owned. And this discovery hunt has sparked a frenzy across the internet as people begin checking their spare change with new excitement, hoping to uncover the small silver-colored coin that could instantly change their life forever. But to understand why a 1976 dime could command such an unbelievable price, you have to travel back in time to the mid-1970s, a period when the United States Mint was operating under enormous demand, as millions of coins were needed to keep the economy moving while the country prepared to celebrate 200 years of independence. And during this rush of production, the Denver Mint facility, responsible for striking coins marked with the small letter D beneath the date, produced massive numbers of dimes that year, most of them completely ordinary pieces worth exactly 10 cents. Yet hidden within that flood of metal were rare misstrikes and anomalies that slipped past quality control, tiny details that seemed insignificant at the time, but would later become legendary among collectors. Because in the world of numismatics, rarity is everything, and sometimes rarity is created not by intention, but by accident. One microscopic flaw in a minting die, one moment of mechanical misalignment, or even a blank planchet meant for another coin can produce a once-in-a-lifetime collectible that experts spend decades searching for. And that is precisely where the mystery of the 1976 dime begins to unfold, because rumors within collector circles started to circulate about a handful of unusual dimes discovered decades later that displayed strange characteristics, from off-center strikes to missing mint marks, unusual metallic compositions, and even ultra-sharp proof-like surfaces that should never have appeared on standard circulation coins. And when these rare examples began appearing in auctions, the prices climbed higher and higher, shocking even seasoned numismatists who had studied coins their entire lives. And soon whispers of a particular specimen began spreading across conventions and collector forums. A near-flawless 1976 dime struck at the Denver Mint, but possessing an extraordinary combination of rarity factors that made it essentially unique, a coin so rare that its estimated value in private collector negotiations reportedly reached the unbelievable figure of $32 million, a number that instantly placed it among the most valuable coins ever discussed in modern numismatic history, rivaling legendary treasures that had been studied for generations. And suddenly the ordinary dime in people's pockets no longer looked so ordinary. Because if even one of those rare anomalies survived in circulation, then anyone, anywhere, could unknowingly possess a piece of hidden fortune. And that possibility ignited a treasure hunt unlike anything seen before in the coin collecting community. with thousands of enthusiasts and casual viewers alike rushing to inspect every dime they could find, examining dates, mint marks, strike quality, and tiny design details under magnifying glasses and smartphone cameras, hoping to catch the slightest clue that their coin might belong to that mysterious category of ultra-valuable 1976 dimes. And what makes this story even more fascinating is that coins often travel incredible journeys through time, passing from one person to another through everyday transactions, sometimes for decades, without anyone realizing their true worth. A rare coin might buy a cup of coffee in one city, right inside a taxi driver's coin tray for months, then end up in a grocery store register before eventually being dropped into a change jar at home. And that jar might sit untouched for years, until someone finally decides to sort through it, only to discover a tiny metallic miracle hiding among hundreds of ordinary coins. Stories like this have happened before in the world of numismatics, where coins worth millions were discovered in flea markets, estate sales, or inherited collections that families almost spent without checking. And that is exactly why the legend of the 1976 dime worth $32 million continues to captivate people today. Because it reminds everyone that treasure does not always come buried beneath ancient ruins or hidden inside pirate chests. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket while you walk down the street, completely unnoticed until curiosity turns into discovery. And experts say that if you want to search for one of these rare coins, you should start by examining the date carefully, making sure it clearly reads 1976, and checking for the small D mint mark beneath the year. Then looking closely at the details of the coin's design, the sharpness of the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the clarity of the lettering, and the edges of the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse side, because rare varieties often show unusual sharpness, doubling, or striking anomalies that separate them from normal coins. And sometimes the difference between an ordinary dime and a priceless one is so subtle that only a trained eye can notice it, which is why collectors often recommend using magnification tools or consulting professional grading services if you believe you have found something unusual. But even without expert equipment, the thrill of checking your coins has become an exciting ritual for thousands of people who now see every dime as a potential lottery ticket disguised as spare change. And social media has only fueled this excitement further, as viral videos show collectors pouring jars of coins onto tables and scanning them one by one, sharing their reactions with viewers who dream of experiencing the same moment of discovery, the instant when an overlooked coin reveals itself as a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And while the odds of finding the legendary $32,001,976 dime may be incredibly small, the possibility alone has created a sense of urgency among collectors and everyday people alike. Because every day millions of coins continue to circulate across the country, and each transaction could unknowingly move a rare specimen closer to someone who finally recognizes its value. Imagine paying for groceries and receiving change that includes the very coin collectors have been searching for. Imagine the shock of realizing that a 10-cent piece resting in your palm could pay for houses, travel, and generations of financial security. That possibility is exactly what keeps the hunt alive, and it is why numismatics remains one of the most thrilling hobbies in the world, blending history, detective work, and the excitement of treasure hunting into a single pursuit that anyone can participate in, regardless of age or experience. Because unlike many other valuable collectibles, coins were designed to move through society, passing from hand to hand as part of everyday life. Which means the next legendary discovery might not come from a museum or a wealthy investor, but from an ordinary person who simply decided to check their change more carefully than everyone else. And as stories of rare coin discoveries continue to spread, the message becomes clear. Never underestimate the power of curiosity, never assume a small object has a small value, and never ignore the quiet clink of a coin hitting your pocket, because hidden inside that sound might be a story worth millions. A piece of history waiting for the right person to notice it. And right now, somewhere out there, 1976 dime could still be traveling through circulation completely unnoticed, slipping from wallet to wallet as people rush through their daily routines, unaware that they are holding a tiny metallic time capsule connected to one of the most astonishing valuations ever whispered about in coin collecting history, which means the next life-changing discovery might happen today, tomorrow, or the next time you receive change at a store. So before you spend another dime without looking, take a moment to examine the date, check the mint mark, and study the details, because the coin that seems the most ordinary might secretly be the rarest treasure of them all. And if stories like this fascinate you, and you want to keep discovering the hidden fortunes and unbelievable mysteries lurking inside everyday coins, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because the next coin we reveal might be the one sitting in your pocket right now waiting to change your life forever. Next, 1988 P dime USA coin. It begins with a quiet moment that almost everyone experiences but rarely thinks about: the casual act of receiving a few coins as change after buying something small, maybe a coffee, maybe a snack, maybe a quick stop at a convenience store. And without even looking, most people slide those coins straight into a pocket, a purse, or a jar at home, never imagining that one of those tiny metal pieces could secretly hold a value so enormous that it could change their entire life overnight. Yet that exact possibility is what has turned the ordinary-looking 1988 P United States dime into one of the most talked-about mysteries in the world of rare coin collecting. Because according to collectors and numismatic experts, there exists an extremely rare variation of the 1988 P dime that has stunned the collecting world, with an estimated value reaching an unbelievable $26 million. A staggering number that sounds impossible for a coin whose face value is just 10 cents, and yet history has proven again and again that the smallest coins can hide the biggest secrets when the right combination of rarity, minting history, and collector demand collide. And the story of the 1988 P dime is exactly that kind of story. A story that begins at the Philadelphia Mint during the late 1980s, when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to keep the economy running smoothly, millions upon millions of dimes leaving the mint each year and entering circulation across the country, most of them completely normal and worth exactly what their face value says, 10 cents. But hidden within those vast production numbers were a few coins that were not quite like the others, subtle anomalies created by tiny differences in the minting process. Details so small that they escaped immediate attention, yet significant enough that decades later collectors would begin to notice something unusual about certain examples, and those discoveries would ignite a hunt that continues even today. Because when collectors study coins, they are not simply looking at pieces of metal, they are examining history captured in miniature. Every line of the design, every letter, every mark left by the minting dies tells a story about the moment that coin was created, and sometimes that story includes an unexpected twist that transforms an everyday coin into an artifact of immense value. And in the case of the 1988 P dime, the twist appears to involve an incredibly rare minting anomaly that slipped into circulation unnoticed during the year it was produced, a detail so rare that only a tiny number of these coins are believed to exist. And when one of these extraordinary examples surfaced in collector discussions, it caused a ripple of excitement that spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. Because if even one such coin could be confirmed, then it meant others might still be out there, quietly moving through circulation, hiding in coin jars, tucked into forgotten collections, or resting inside drawers where they have been ignored for years. And that realization created a wave of curiosity among both seasoned collectors and ordinary people who had never before considered that their spare change might contain hidden treasure. Because the truth about coins is something most people never stop to think about. Unlike paintings, rare cars, or famous jewelry, coins were designed to travel constantly from one person to another. They move through society as part of everyday life, which means even the rarest coin can sometimes remain hidden in plain sight for decades. passing through thousands of hands without anyone noticing what makes it special, and this phenomenon has led to some of the most astonishing discoveries in collecting history. Stories where rare coins worth hundreds of thousands, or even millions were found inside piggy banks, inherited coin jars, flea market purchases, and pocket change received during ordinary shopping trips. And that is exactly why the legend of the 1988 P dime valued at $26 million has captured so much attention, because the possibility that such a valuable coin could still exist in circulation turns every handful of change into a potential treasure hunt. And the more people learn about this mysterious dime, the more they begin checking their coins carefully, examining dates and mint marks with fresh curiosity, hoping they might be the lucky person who discovers the next legendary specimen. But to truly understand why this dime has reached such a remarkable valuation, it helps to look closely at the history behind the Roosevelt dime itself, a coin first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his passing. Roosevelt had been closely associated with the fight against polio and the March of Dimes campaign, so placing his portrait on the 10-cent coin became both a tribute and a symbol of hope. And since that time, the Roosevelt dime has remained one of the most recognizable coins in American currency, featuring Roosevelt's profile on the front and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, representing liberty, peace, and strength. And by 1988, this design had already been in circulation for more than 4 decades, produced in enormous numbers each year at several mint facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And yet, despite that long history, surprises continued to appear, because every minting process carries the possibility of small variations, sometimes caused by worn dies, sometimes by misalignment, sometimes by accidental mixing of dies from different years, and occasionally by other mechanical quirks that create a coin unlike any other in the production run. And it is widely believed among collectors that the rare 1988 P dime responsible for the $26 million valuation is linked to one of these unusual minting circumstances. A combination of rarity factors so extreme that it transformed a simple coin into a once-in-a-generation discovery, the kind of coin that wealthy collectors compete fiercely to obtain, because owning it means possessing a unique piece of numismatic history. And when the possibility of such a coin first began circulating through collector communities, the reaction was immediate and intense. Experts began reviewing archived mint records, studying die varieties, and analyzing surviving specimens from that year to determine what might make this particular coin so rare. And while the exact details remain the subject of ongoing debate, the excitement surrounding the coin has only grown stronger with time, because every year that passes without another confirmed discovery makes the known examples even more valuable, and the possibility that others remain undiscovered keeps the hunt alive. And this hunt has expanded far beyond traditional coin collecting circles thanks to the internet, where stories about rare coins spread quickly through videos, forums, and social media posts that encourage viewers to check their change. And thousands of people have responded by digging through jars of coins that have been sitting untouched for years, sorting through piles of dimes in hopes of spotting the tiny details that could reveal a hidden fortune. And while most of those searches end with ordinary coins worth their face value, the excitement lies in the possibility that the next coin examined could be the extraordinary one collectors have been searching for. And this sense of possibility is exactly what makes coin collecting so fascinating, because unlike many other valuable collectibles, coins are democratic in a way. They are not locked behind museum glass or restricted to wealthy investors. They circulate freely through everyday transactions, which means anyone at any time could stumble upon something remarkable simply by paying attention to the coins that pass through their hands. And stories of incredible discoveries reinforce that idea again and again. Tales of people who almost spent a rare coin before realizing its value, families who inherited collections without knowing what treasures they contained, and collectors who spotted tiny details others overlooked, transforming a small piece of metal into a life-changing asset. And the legend of the 1988p dime continues to inspire those stories today, reminding people that history and fortune can hide in the most unexpected places. Because coins are more than currency, they are artifacts that travel through time, each one carrying the marks of the era in which it was created. And sometimes those marks reveal secrets that no one noticed until decades later. And when those secrets are finally uncovered, the results can be astonishing, turning an object most people would ignore into something that commands global attention and unimaginable value. And that is why collectors say the most important rule in numismatics is simple: never ignore a coin without looking at it first, because the difference between an ordinary dime and a $26 million rarity might be nothing more than a tiny detail in the date, the mint mark, or the strike quality, a detail that becomes obvious only when someone takes the time to look closely. And right now, somewhere out there, a 1988p dime could still be waiting to be discovered, resting quietly in a coin jar, hiding in the corner of a drawer, or traveling from person to person through everyday purchases, unnoticed but incredibly valuable. And the person who finally recognizes it might be someone who simply decided to check their change more carefully than everyone else, someone who understood that even the smallest coin can hold an extraordinary story, and that possibility is what keeps the excitement alive. Because every time a dime changes hands, the mystery continues, and the next chapter in the story of the $26,001,988p dime could begin at any moment, perhaps in a grocery store checkout line, perhaps in a handful of coins emptied onto a kitchen table, perhaps in the pocket of someone who never expected that a tiny silver-colored coin could hold the power to transform their entire future. And that is why collectors and curious viewers alike are paying closer attention than ever before, because hidden among billions of ordinary coins may still be the rare piece that proves the legend true, a small, shining reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures in the world are not buried underground or locked inside vaults, but quietly circulating through everyday life, waiting for the right person to notice them. So the next time you receive a dime, do not rush to spend it immediately. Pause for a moment, look at the date, check for the P mint mark beneath the year, study the details of the design, because that simple habit could lead to the discovery of something extraordinary. And if stories like this inspire your curiosity about hidden treasures and rare coins, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because the next unbelievable coin story might be about a small piece of change that is sitting in your pocket right now waiting to be discovered. Next, 1989 D1 dime USA coin. It begins with a tiny metallic sound most people ignore every single day, the light clink of a coin dropping onto a counter or sliding into a pocket. A sound so ordinary that it rarely earns a second thought. Yet hidden inside that simple moment could be one of the most shocking financial discoveries imaginable, because collectors and coin experts have revealed that a rare version of the 1989 United States dime has been associated with an astonishing valuation, reaching as high as $23 million, an amount that seems almost impossible when you remember that the coin itself carries a face value of just 10 cents. But throughout history, the world of coin collecting has proven that the smallest pieces of metal can hide the greatest fortunes when rarity, history, and collector demand collide in the right way. And the legend of the 1989 D dime is one of those stories that has captured the imagination of collectors and everyday people alike, because it suggests that somewhere out there among billions of ordinary coins there could still be a small shining piece of metal quietly traveling from hand to hand that is worth more than luxury mansions, exotic cars, and generations of financial security combined. And the most incredible part of the story is that the coin does not look extraordinary at first glance. It appears almost identical to the millions of Roosevelt dimes produced every year in the United States, featuring the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch design on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Yet hidden within that familiar design lies a mystery that has fascinated the numismatic world for years. A mystery tied to the production of coins at the Denver Mint in 1989, when billions of coins were being manufactured to meet the needs of the American economy, and within that massive production run a tiny number of coins appear to have been struck under unusual circumstances that created subtle, but incredibly important differences so rare that only a handful of collectors have ever claimed to see them in person. And those rare specimens are the reason the 1989 D dime has become the focus of one of the most exciting treasure hunts in modern coin collecting. Because if even a few examples exist, then it means there is always the possibility that others might still be hiding in circulation today, quietly sitting inside coin jars, piggy banks, desk drawers, old purses, inherited collections, or even the loose change someone receives at a grocery store without paying attention. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching, because coins are unique among valuable collectibles in one very important way. They were designed to circulate constantly through everyday life, which means even the rarest coin can travel unnoticed for decades, passing through thousands of hands before someone finally recognizes its significance. And this phenomenon has led to some of the most astonishing discoveries in the history of numismatics, where coins worth enormous sums of money were found in the most unexpected places, sometimes by people who had never collected coins before but simply decided to examine their change a little more carefully. And the story of the 1989 D dime fits perfectly into that tradition, because experts believe its extraordinary value is linked to a rare minting anomaly that occurred during production, an anomaly so subtle that it escaped detection at the time, but later became a point of fascination for collectors studying coin varieties and die differences from the late 20th century. And while the exact details remain the subject of discussion among specialists, the excitement surrounding the coin has only grown stronger with time, because every year that passes without new discoveries makes the known examples even more legendary. And whenever one of these rare coins is rumored to appear in private collections, the estimated value climbs higher as wealthy collectors compete for the chance to own something truly unique, a coin that represents not only a rare object but also a fascinating moment in the history of the United States Mint. And to understand how something so small can become so valuable, it helps to look back at the broader history of the Roosevelt dime itself. A coin first introduced in 1946, shortly after the passing of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, as a tribute to his leadership and his connection to the March of Dimes campaign, which raised funds to fight polio. And since that time, the Roosevelt dime has remained one of the most widely used coins in American currency, produced in enormous quantities every year by different mint facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And because these coins are produced in such large numbers, most people assume they will never be worth more than their face value. Yet collectors know that within those vast mintages tiny variations can appear, sometimes caused by worn or damaged dies, sometimes by misalignments during the striking process, sometimes by accidental mixing of dies intended for other coins, and occasionally by unusual circumstances that produce a coin unlike any other in the entire production run. And when such a coin is discovered, its rarity can elevate its value far beyond anything people expect from everyday currency. And that is exactly what seems to have happened with the mysterious 1989 D dime that collectors believe could reach a value of $23 million. A coin so rare that many enthusiasts spend hours examining their dimes under magnification, hoping to spot the subtle details that might indicate they have discovered one of these extraordinary pieces. Because the difference between an ordinary dime and a rare variety can sometimes be incredibly small, perhaps a tiny doubling in the lettering, an unusual sharpness in the design, a misaligned strike, or another microscopic detail that becomes obvious only when someone looks closely enough. And this is why coin collecting often feels like a form of detective work, where patience, curiosity, and attention to detail can lead to discoveries that seem almost unbelievable. And thanks to the internet, the excitement surrounding rare coins has spread far beyond traditional collector circles, as videos, articles, and social media posts encourage millions of people to check their spare change for hidden treasures, turning an everyday activity into a global treasure hunt where anyone could potentially make the next great discovery. And the legend of the 1989 dime plays a major role in that excitement, because it reminds people that even coins from relatively recent decades can become incredibly valuable if the right combination of rarity and collector demand exists. And every time someone hears about a 10-cent coin worth $23 million, the same question immediately comes to mind: what if one of those coins is sitting in my house right now? And that question is powerful enough to send people searching through old jars of coins that have been ignored for years, carefully sorting through piles of change on kitchen tables, studying dates and mint marks one by one, while imagining the moment when an ordinary-looking dime suddenly reveals itself as something extraordinary. And although the chances of finding such a rare coin are extremely small, the thrill of the possibility keeps the hunt alive, because history has shown that incredible discoveries do happen, sometimes when people least expect them. And that is why collectors always repeat the same simple advice: never spend a coin without looking at it first, because the coin that seems the most ordinary might actually be the rarest treasure of them all. And right now, somewhere out there, a 1989 dime could still be quietly moving through circulation completely unnoticed, passing from wallet to wallet, register to register, pocket to pocket, as people go about their daily routines unaware that they are holding a tiny metallic fortune in the palm of their hand. And the person who finally recognizes it might not be a professional collector at all, but simply someone who decided to pay attention to the coins they received as change. Someone curious enough to look closely at the date and the small letter D mint mark beneath it. Someone patient enough to examine the details of the design and notice something slightly different that others overlooked. And in that moment, a coin worth 10 cents could suddenly become a discovery worth $23 million, a transformation so dramatic that it sounds like fiction yet remains entirely possible within the fascinating world of numismatics, a world where history, art, economics, and luck combine in ways that continue to surprise people generation after generation. And that is exactly why stories like the legendary 1989 dime continue to spread across the internet, capturing the imagination of viewers everywhere. Because they remind us that hidden treasure does not always require maps or buried chests. Sometimes it exists in the everyday objects we overlook the most, the coins that pass through our hands without a second thought, the small shining circles of metal that carry decades of history, and sometimes secrets worth millions. So the next time you receive a handful of change, take a moment before you spend it. Look closely at the dimes, check the date, search for the small D mint mark, and study the design carefully, because the coin that looks completely ordinary might actually be one of the rarest discoveries in modern coin collecting history. And if stories like this spark your curiosity about hidden treasures and valuable coins still circulating in everyday life, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because the next unbelievable coin story we uncover might reveal that another small piece of pocket change is secretly worth a fortune, waiting for the right person to discover it. Next, 2000p United States dime. It starts with a moment so ordinary that most people never even notice it: the quick exchange of coins after a small purchase, the cashier sliding a few pieces of metal across the counter, the faint metallic clink as they land in your palm, and without thinking you slip them into your pocket, purse, or wallet, never imagining that one of those tiny coins could secretly hold a value greater than luxury houses, rare sports cars, or a lifetime of financial security. Yet, that unbelievable possibility is exactly what has captured the attention of coin collectors and curious treasure hunters around the world, because a mysterious version of the 2000p United States dime has been connected to an astonishing valuation estimated at $18 million, an amount so large that it almost sounds impossible for a coin whose face value is only 10 cents. But the fascinating world of coin collecting has shown again and again that when rarity, historical circumstance, and collector demand intersect in the right way, even the most common-looking coin can transform into a legendary treasure. And the story of the 2000p dime begins during a time when the United States Mint was entering a new millennium. The year 2000 carrying symbolic significance across the world as people reflected on the past and looked toward the future. And at the Philadelphia Mint, millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes were being struck to meet the everyday needs of commerce across the country, each coin stamped with the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front and the iconic torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbols representing liberty, peace, and strength. And to most people these coins were nothing more than everyday change, the type of coin you might drop into a parking meter, use at a vending machine, or toss into a jar on the kitchen counter at the end of the day. Yet hidden among those millions of coins were a few mysterious pieces that would later attract the attention of dedicated numismatists who spend their lives studying the smallest details of currency, because collectors understand something most people overlook. Every coin carries the marks of the machines that created it. Every line, letter, and edge reflects the precise moment it was struck. And sometimes those moments produce anomalies so rare that they turn an ordinary coin into something extraordinary, and it is believed that during the production of the 2000p dime a rare minting anomaly occurred, a subtle but incredibly significant difference in the way a small number of coins were struck, a difference that escaped detection at the time, but would later be noticed by sharp-eyed collectors examining coins years after they had already entered circulation. And when one of these unusual specimens began circulating through collector discussions, it sparked a wave of excitement, because the coin displayed characteristics that were far from ordinary, details that suggested it might be the result of an extremely rare die variety or striking circumstance that occurred only briefly before the mint corrected the issue and continued normal production. And that brief moment in the minting process may have created one of the rarest modern dimes ever discussed. A coin so unusual that its estimated value has been whispered among collectors at figures approaching $18 million. And once that possibility entered the numismatic community, it transformed the way people looked at their everyday change. Because if such a coin could exist, then it meant there was always a chance that others might still be hiding somewhere in the vast ocean of coins circulating through the economy. And this is what makes coins different from many other collectibles. Paintings and sculptures are usually displayed in galleries or museums where everyone can see them. But coins are designed to move constantly through society, traveling from person to person through everyday transactions, sometimes covering incredible distances over the course of decades. And because of this constant movement, a rare coin can remain hidden in plain sight for years or even generations before someone finally recognizes what they have found. And history has provided many remarkable examples of this phenomenon, where rare coins worth enormous sums were discovered in unexpected places, like old jars of change, inherited collections, garage sales, flea markets, or even the bottom of a drawer where someone had forgotten them completely. And the legend of the 2000p dime worth $18 million fits perfectly into that tradition of astonishing discoveries, because it suggests that the next life-changing find might be sitting quietly in someone's home right now waiting to be noticed. And as stories about this rare dime began spreading through online forums, collector communities, and viral videos, more and more people started paying attention to their spare change, examining the dates and mint marks on the coins they received every day, turning a simple habit into a kind of treasure hunt where each dime becomes a small possibility, a chance that the next coin you look at might be the one collectors have been searching for. And this sense of possibility has fueled an enormous wave of curiosity among viewers who had never thought about coin collecting before. People who suddenly realized that the objects they handle every day might contain hidden history and hidden value. And many of them began sorting through jars of coins that had been sitting untouched for years, spreading them across kitchen tables, and carefully studying each one under bright lights or magnifying glasses, hoping to spot something unusual. And while most of those coins turned out to be ordinary, the thrill of the search itself kept the excitement alive, because every coin examined represented another chance at discovery, another chance to find the tiny detail that could transform a 10-cent piece into a fortune worth millions. And for collectors, that moment of discovery is the ultimate reward, the instant when years of patience and curiosity pay off with a realization that you are holding something truly rare, a small artifact that connects you to a unique moment in history. And the 2000p dime continues to inspire that sense of wonder because it represents a mystery that has not yet been fully solved, a puzzle hidden within the everyday currency of the modern world. And experts believe that if more examples of this unusual coin were ever discovered, they could confirm exactly what happened during the minting process that created such a valuable rarity. But until that moment arrives, the legend remains alive, fueled by the possibility that somewhere out there another example is still waiting to be found, quietly traveling through circulation as people spend their coins without a second thought. And imagine the moment when someone finally notices it, perhaps a collector examining a handful of change after a purchase, perhaps a curious viewer who remembered hearing about rare coins and decided to check the date on a dime before spending it, perhaps a family sorting through an old coin jar inherited from a relative. And in that moment, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, as the realization slowly sets in that the coin in their hand might be one of the rarest modern dimes ever produced, a coin with an estimated value of $18 million. And that possibility is exactly what keeps the hunt alive, because the truth about coin collecting is that every discovery begins with a simple decision to look closely at something most people ignore. And that decision can transform everyday life into an adventure filled with history, curiosity, and the thrilling chance of uncovering hidden treasure. Because the coins we carry are more than just currency, they are pieces of time traveling through generations, carrying stories from the moment they were created. And sometimes those stories contain secrets that remain hidden for years until the right person notices them. And right now, somewhere in the world, a 2000p dime could still be resting quietly in a jar of spare change, tucked away in a drawer, or moving through the endless chain of everyday transactions, waiting for the moment when someone curious enough pauses to examine it carefully and realizes they are holding something extraordinary, a tiny circle of metal with the power to change a life forever. So the next time you receive a dime, do not rush to spend it. Immediately take a moment to look at the date, check for the small p mint mark, and study the details, because the coin you almost ignored might actually be one of the most valuable hidden treasures in modern coin collecting history. And as the legend of the mysterious 2000p dime continues spreading across the world of collectors and everyday treasure hunters, the excitement surrounding this tiny coin only grows stronger, because the deeper experts look into the history of that year's minting process, the more fascinating possibilities begin to emerge. And every possibility fuels the belief that somewhere out there a forgotten coin worth $18 million could still be quietly hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment when someone curious enough pauses before spending it and decides to look a little closer. Because the year 2000 was a unique moment in American coin production, when the United States Mint was operating at an incredible pace while also transitioning into a new technological era. And during times of high production, even the most advanced minting systems can occasionally produce anomalies, tiny mechanical differences that result in coins with unusual characteristics. Sometimes a die becomes slightly misaligned. Sometimes a die used for another purpose accidentally enters production. Sometimes a metal blank behaves differently under the immense pressure of the coining press. And those small moments can create coins unlike any others produced that year. Coins that quietly leave the mint mixed among millions of ordinary pieces, indistinguishable to the untrained eye, yet instantly recognizable to experienced numismatists who know what details to examine. And this is exactly how some of the most valuable coins in history have been discovered, not because they were intentionally created as rarities, but because they were accidents of history, brief mechanical quirks captured forever in metal. And decades later, those quirks become legendary because so few examples exist. And when collectors finally identify them, the race begins to locate surviving specimens before they disappear again into private collections or museum vaults, and the 2000p dime has become one of those intriguing mysteries that inspires both experts and beginners to search through coins with renewed enthusiasm. Because unlike ancient treasures buried beneath ruins, these coins may still be circulating through everyday life right now, passing from one person to another through routine purchases, slipping into wallets, piggy banks, and coin jars where they might remain unnoticed for years until someone finally decides to sort through them carefully. And imagine the shock of that moment, when an ordinary-looking dime suddenly reveals itself as something extraordinary, when a person who was simply counting change realizes that the small silver-colored coin resting in their hand might be the very rarity collectors have been discussing for years, a coin whose estimated value has been whispered at $18 million. And stories like that are not impossible fantasies, because the history of coin collecting is filled with discoveries that seemed unbelievable until they actually happened. Coins found in flea markets, garage sales, inherited collections, or even pocket change that turned out to be worth life-changing sums of money, and each one of those discoveries started with the same simple action: someone decided to take a closer look at a coin instead of ignoring it. And that habit of curiosity is what keeps the search for the rare 2000p dime alive today, with thousands of people around the world examining their spare change, hoping to spot the subtle clues that might indicate they have found something special, because the difference between an ordinary coin and a rare one can be surprisingly small, perhaps a slightly different strike pattern, a faint doubling in the lettering, an unusual alignment of the design elements, or another tiny detail that stands out only when compared with standard examples from the same year. And collectors often use magnifying glasses or specialized tools to inspect coins carefully, because those microscopic details can reveal the hidden story behind a coin's creation. And for many enthusiasts, the thrill of that investigation is just as exciting as the possibility of discovering a valuable rarity, because every coin carries a piece of history, a physical link to the moment it was minted and the countless hands it has passed through since then. And the 2000p dime is a perfect example of how even modern coins can develop fascinating stories as time passes, especially when collectors begin to notice unusual patterns among surviving specimens, patterns that hint at rare varieties or minting anomalies that were never documented officially but still exist in the real world waiting to be confirmed. And as more people become interested in checking their coins, the chances of discovering new examples increase, which is why the legend of this coin continues to circulate through collector communities and online discussions, inspiring viewers to search through drawers, coin jars, and old collections that may have been sitting untouched for decades, because hidden inside those collections could be the very coin experts have been hoping to examine again. A rare 2000p dime that proves the incredible valuation estimates are more than just rumors. And if such a discovery were made, it would instantly capture headlines across the numismatic world, because it would confirm that one of the most valuable modern dimes ever discussed is not just a legend, but a real piece of American currency history. And until that moment arrives, the story remains an open mystery that anyone could potentially solve simply by paying attention to the coins they encounter every day, because every time a dime changes hands, another opportunity appears for someone to notice the details others overlooked, and that possibility transforms ordinary change into a treasure hunt happening quietly all around us. A hunt where the prize could be worth millions, yet hidden in something small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. And that is why collectors always remind newcomers of one important truth: never underestimate a coin just because it looks common, because the rarest discoveries often look exactly like ordinary coins until someone examines them closely enough to notice what makes them unique. And right now, somewhere a 2000p dime could still be moving through circulation completely unnoticed, traveling from store to store, pocket to pocket, waiting for the right person to recognize it. And the moment that happens, the story of the $18 million dime will enter a new chapter, proving once again that hidden treasures still exist in the most unexpected places, sometimes not buried underground or locked inside vaults, but simply resting among everyday coins waiting for a curious mind to uncover their secret value. And that is exactly why the search continues, because the next great discovery could happen anywhere at any time to anyone willing to look closely enough. Next, 1960 Roosevelt dime. It begins with something almost everyone has done countless times without even thinking about it: the casual act of dropping a small coin onto a table, sliding it across a counter, or tossing it into a jar of spare change at the end of the day. And in that simple everyday motion, there exists a possibility so astonishing that most people would dismiss it immediately if they heard it for the first time. Because imagine discovering that one of those tiny silver-colored coins, a simple United States dime dated 1960, could secretly be worth as much as $39 million, a number so enormous it feels impossible for something with a face value of only 10 cents. Yet, in the fascinating world of coin collecting, stories like this have captivated experts and treasure hunters for generations. And the mysterious legend surrounding the 1960 Roosevelt dime has become one of the most exciting discussions in modern numismatics, because collectors believe that certain rare variations from that year may represent one of the most valuable hidden treasures ever produced by the United States Mint. And what makes the story even more incredible is that these coins were never meant to be rare or valuable when they were created. They were simply part of the everyday flow of currency produced to keep the American economy moving. Yet somewhere during the minting process something unusual appears to have happened. A small detail in the production chain that created a coin unlike the millions of others struck that year. And that small detail may have transformed an ordinary dime into a legendary artifact whose value has been whispered among collectors at nearly $40 million. And to understand how something so ordinary could become so extraordinary, you have to travel back to the year 1960, a time when the United States was experiencing rapid change. The nation was entering a new decade filled with technological optimism and cultural transformation, and the United States Mint was working tirelessly to produce the coins needed for a growing economy. Millions of dimes rolling off minting presses in facilities such as Philadelphia and Denver, each coin stamped with the iconic image of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose portrait had appeared on the dime since 1946. And the design itself carried deep symbolic meaning, with Roosevelt's profile on the front representing leadership and resilience, while the reverse side displayed a torch flanked by olive and oak branches symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. And by 1960, this design had already become one of the most recognizable images in American currency. Yet behind the scenes of the minting process, there existed countless variables that could influence how a coin was created. From the condition of the metal blanks to the alignment of the dies that stamped the design onto each piece of metal. And sometimes those variables produced subtle anomalies that escaped detection in the rush of mass production, anomalies that might involve a slight misalignment, an unusual strike, a rare die variety, or another microscopic difference that collectors would only recognize years later after studying large numbers of coins from the same period. And that is exactly how some of the most valuable coins in history have been discovered. Not because they were intentionally designed as treasures, but because they were accidental rarities created by unique moments in the minting process, moments captured forever in metal and released into circulation among millions of ordinary coins. And the legend of the 1960 dime valued at $39 million appears to be tied to one of those extraordinary moments, a rare variation that collectors believe exists in extremely limited numbers. Perhaps only a few examples ever struck before the Mint corrected the issue and continued normal production. And when rumors of such a coin began circulating through numismatic communities decades later, they sparked intense curiosity among collectors, because the discovery of a previously unknown rarity from such an early date in the Roosevelt dime series would represent a monumental event in modern coin collecting. And as researchers began examining surviving coins from 1960 more carefully, they discovered subtle differences in certain specimens that suggested something unusual had indeed occurred during that year's production, and while the exact nature of the anomaly remains the subject of debate, the excitement surrounding the coin has only grown with time, because every year that passes without a widely confirmed discovery makes the possibility even more fascinating, and the idea that a coin worth $39 million might still be hiding somewhere among ordinary pocket change has inspired thousands of people to begin checking their coins with renewed attention, turning everyday routines into miniature treasure hunts where each dime becomes a potential clue in an ongoing mystery. And the beauty of coin collecting is that it allows anyone to participate regardless of wealth or experience, because coins are designed to move constantly through society, traveling from person to person through everyday transactions, which means even the rarest specimen can remain hidden in plain sight for decades before someone finally recognizes what makes it special. And history is filled with examples of exactly that kind of discovery, where ordinary individuals found rare coins worth enormous sums simply because they decided to examine their change instead of ignoring it. Sometimes the discovery happened in a jar of coins saved over many years, sometimes in a collection inherited from a relative, sometimes even in the pocket change received after a routine purchase. And each of those stories reinforces the idea that hidden treasures may exist in the most unexpected places, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to notice them. And the legend of the 1960 dime continues to inspire that sense of curiosity, because it reminds people that the objects we handle every day may carry stories far more valuable than we realize. Stories connected to the history of the nation, the evolution of minting technology, and the unpredictable accidents that occasionally create something unique in the middle of mass production. And collectors who search for rare coins often describe the process as a blend of history and detective work, where every detail matters and every coin has the potential to reveal a new clue about the past. And when a discovery finally happens, the excitement can be overwhelming, because the realization that a small coin worth 10 cents could actually be worth millions transforms the way people think about everyday objects. Suddenly, the spare change in a pocket becomes more than just currency, it becomes a collection of possibilities, each coin representing a tiny piece of history that might hold a secret waiting to be uncovered. And that is why the story of the 1960 Roosevelt dime, valued at $39 million, continues to circulate among collectors and curious viewers around the world, because the possibility that such a treasure could still exist in circulation turns every handful of change into a moment of anticipation, a chance that the next coin examined might be the one collectors have been searching for. And imagine the moment when someone finally finds it, perhaps a collector examining a roll of coins from the bank, perhaps a family sorting through an old jar of change, perhaps an ordinary person who simply remembered hearing about rare dimes and decided to check the date before spending it. And in that moment, the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, as the realization begins to sink in that the small piece of metal in their hand may represent one of the most valuable coins ever discovered in modern numismatics, a coin whose estimated value approaches $39 million. And that possibility is exactly what keeps the hunt alive, because the world of coin collecting thrives on the excitement of discovery and the belief that hidden treasures are still waiting to be found. And right now, somewhere, a 1960 dime could still be quietly resting in a drawer, a piggy bank, a forgotten coin jar, or circulating through everyday transactions completely unnoticed, moving from person to person as people go about their daily lives unaware that they might be holding a tiny fortune in the palm of their hand. And the person who finally recognizes it might not be a professional collector at all, but simply someone who took a moment to look closely at the coins they received as change, someone curious enough to study the date and the details of the design, someone patient enough to notice something slightly different that others overlooked. And in that instant, a coin worth 10 cents could become a discovery worth $39 million, proving once again that the greatest treasures sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. And the deeper collectors dive into the mystery surrounding the legendary 1960 dime, the more fascinating the story becomes, because what originally started as a simple discussion among numismatists has slowly evolved into one of the most intriguing treasure hunts in modern coin collecting history. A hunt fueled by the possibility that a tiny coin produced more than 6 decades ago could still be quietly circulating somewhere today, waiting for the right person to recognize it. And when experts examine the production environment of the United States Mint during the late 1950s and early 1960s, they often point out that this was a period of enormous activity for American coinage. The nation was growing rapidly, commerce was expanding, and the demand for small denomination coins like dimes was constantly increasing, which meant minting facilities were running their presses at extraordinary speeds, producing millions upon millions of coins that would immediately enter circulation across the country. And whenever coins are produced in such vast numbers, the possibility always exists that a few pieces may emerge slightly different from the rest due to mechanical variables, worn dies, experimental adjustments, or even momentary misalignments in the machinery that stamps the design onto each blank metal planchet. And while most of these small differences are subtle and harmless, some of them create extremely rare varieties that later capture the attention of collectors who spend years studying and comparing coins from the same period. And the 1960 dime appears to belong to that category of coins whose story may not have been fully understood at the moment it was minted, but has slowly revealed itself through decades of careful observation by experts who noticed that certain examples from that year display characteristics that are not commonly found in the majority of coins produced during the same time frame. And when those unusual characteristics began appearing in discussions among collectors, the excitement quickly grew because the discovery of a new rare variety within a widely circulated coin series can instantly change the way people view that coin forever, transforming something that once seemed ordinary into an object of intense fascination and extraordinary value. And as the legend of the 1960 dime, valued at $39 million, began spreading through coin collecting circles, the idea captured the imagination of thousands of enthusiasts who realized that if such a coin truly exists, it might still be hiding in plain sight somewhere among everyday coins. Because unlike museum artifacts, coins do not remain in one place. They travel constantly through society, moving from wallet to wallet and from one generation to the next. And this constant movement creates the possibility that a rare specimen can remain unnoticed for decades, especially if the difference that makes it valuable is small enough that only a trained eye would immediately recognize it. And this is why coin collectors often describe their hobby as a treasure hunt happening quietly within everyday life, a search where patience and curiosity can sometimes lead to discoveries that feel almost unbelievable, because history has already shown that rare coins worth enormous sums have been found in the most unexpected places, from dusty boxes and attics to forgotten jars of spare change that had been sitting untouched for years. And every time one of those discoveries happens, it reinforces the idea that hidden treasures are still waiting to be found by people who simply take the time to look closely at the coins around them. And the story of the mysterious 1960 dime has become one of the most powerful examples of that idea, because it reminds people that the difference between a 10-cent coin and a multi-million-dollar collectible might be nothing more than a tiny detail that most people would overlook without a second thought, perhaps a subtle variation in the strike, a rare die pairing, an unusual alignment of design elements, or another small feature that reveals the coin's unique origin within the minting process. And for collectors, those tiny details are like clues in a historical puzzle, where every new discovery adds another piece to the larger story of how coins were produced and how rare varieties came into existence. And the excitement surrounding the 1960 dime continues to grow, because the more people learn about rare coin discoveries, the more they realize that even modern pocket change can contain extraordinary surprises. And this realization has inspired countless individuals to start checking their coins with new attention, carefully examining dates, mint marks, and design details in hopes of spotting something unusual, turning an everyday habit into an adventure filled with anticipation. Because every dime examined represents another chance to uncover a hidden rarity, another opportunity to find a small metallic artifact that could instantly transform an ordinary moment into a life-changing discovery. And imagine the scene when such a discovery finally happens, perhaps someone sitting at a kitchen table sorting through a jar of old coins inherited from a relative, perhaps a collector searching through rolls of coins obtained from a bank, perhaps a curious viewer who remembered hearing about rare dimes and decided to look more closely before spending their change. And in that quiet moment of examination, the realization slowly emerges that the coin in their hand might not be ordinary at all, but instead one of the rarest surviving examples of the mysterious 1960 dime that collectors have been discussing for years, a coin whose estimated value has reached the astonishing figure of $39 million. And the emotional impact of that realization would be almost impossible to describe, because it would mean that a small object most people treat casually could suddenly become one of the most valuable coins in modern numismatic history, a discovery capable of capturing international attention and inspiring a new generation of collectors to explore the hidden stories within everyday currency. And until that moment arrives, the legend of the 1960 dime continues to live on, fueled by curiosity, research, and the simple possibility that somewhere out there another example is still waiting to be found, perhaps resting quietly inside a forgotten coin album, perhaps mixed among ordinary coins in a drawer, perhaps even traveling through everyday transactions without anyone realizing what it truly represents. And the person who finally recognizes it might be someone who simply chose to pay attention to the details others ignored, someone who understood that history sometimes hides in the smallest objects, and that even a dime can carry a story worth millions. And that is why collectors continue searching, because the next great discovery could happen anywhere at any time to anyone willing to look carefully enough at the coins that pass through their hands every day.